With it preparing to launch now for its actual 16th flight, let's go ahead and take a look back at the launch legacy of this particular first stage booster before it makes its 16th flight. It began launching back on May 14th of 2022 with its very first Starlink mission, that being Starlink Group 4-15, sending 53 version 1.5 Starlink satellites to low Earth orbit. Next up was a C-band communications satellite for Luxembourg-based SES on June 29th, that being SES-22. That was followed by a pair of Starlink missions, 4-26 on August 10th and 4-35 on September 24th. That was followed by this booster's first lunar supporting mission with the launch of the Hakuto R Mission 1 lander back on December 11th. The launch went off as planned. Unfortunately, the lander crashed on the moon and failed to become the first commercial lander to safely touch down on the surface of the moon. February 7th, 2023, B-1073 launched the Amazonas Nexus satellite. This was a Spanish communications satellite for Hispasat that covers the Americas, Europe, and North Africa, followed by a mission to the International Space Station with the Commercial Resupply Services, or CRS-27 mission, launching on the Ides of March back in 2023. Missions 8 through 13, all Starlink flights. Those were 6-2 on April 19th, 5-11 on June 12th, 6-12 on September 4th, 6-27 on November 8th, and then moving into this year, 6-37 on January 15th, 6-41 on March 4th. That was followed up by the first mid-inclination orbit rideshare mission for SpaceX called Bandwagon 1. That launched on April 7th. And most recently was, surprise, surprise, another Starlink flight, that being Starlink 6-58, which launched on May 13th. That brings us up to today with the Starlink 12 feet. Majority of that made up by the Falcon9's first stage. Bottom two-thirds of the rocket. Of course, this is booster 1073 in the SpaceX fleet, which has flown 15 times before. At the base of the first stage are those 9 Merlin engines, which burn a combination of rocket-grade kerosene and liquid oxygen and produce 1.7 million pounds of thrust. Around the engine compartment are the black carbon fiber landing legs, which will be used to land the first stage on the drone ship. Again, today they're using a shortfall of gravitas. Above the first stage is the inner stage. This is a composite structure consisting of an aluminum honeycomb core, which is surrounded by carbon fiber. In the image on the right-hand side of your screen, you can see those deployable hypersonic grid fins. These are titanium winglets that provide stability and steering for the Falcon 9 as it comes back through the atmosphere tail first, like a big old dart towards the drone ship. At the top of the inner stage are 3 mechanical latches that attach to the second stage. In the first stage of main engine cutoff, high-pressure helium is used to release those latches, and 4 pneumatic pushers ensure a clean separation. The second stage engine nozzle is also housed safely inside the inner stage adapter until stage separation. Speaking of that second stage, the upper stage of the Falcon 9 powered by a single modified Merlin engine called a Merlin vacuum engine, or an MVAC engine. It's equipped with a large nozzle which is optimized for burns in the vacuum of space, hence the name. It produces more than 200,000 pounds of thrust and it will be fired twice on today's flight, placing the 20 Starlink satellites into their intended orbit. The MVAC engine burns the same prop mix, that being RP1 and LOX, same as the first stage. Following Starlink satellite deployment, there will be a third ignition of this engine for a deorbit burn. That's important because it helps drive the upper stage back into the atmosphere where it will burn up and help eliminate the risk of creating any unnecessary space debris on this mission. Finally, at the top of the rocket, of course, are the payload fairings, which encapsulate and protect the 20 Starlink satellites. These fairings are made up of a carbon composite material and are 13.1 meters or 43 feet tall, 5.2 meters or 17.1 feet in diameter. 2 halves of the payload fairing, of course, will also be recovered a little bit downrange where the first stage lands on the drone ship. They gently splash down, supported by parachutes. The recovery vessel Bob will fish them out of the water, return them back to Port Canaveral for refurbishment and reuse. With that call out, SpaceX is preparing, as you heard, the strong back retract sequence. The clamp arms underneath the payload fairings will open up, and then the transporter erector for the strong back will recline about 1.5 degrees away from the Falcon 9 rocket. You could see through the vapor there, those clamp arms now opening up. Just as a little bit of housekeeping, you see a slight difference between our clock at the upper right-hand corner of your screen and the clock there from the SpaceX feed in the center of that box. Our clock is in real time. The feed coming in from SpaceX is on a slight delay by about 10 seconds or so. So the callouts for the mission milestones will be made based off of our real-time clock. We're now just a little more than 3 minutes away from liftoff. Certainly appreciate that now more than 4,700 of you who are watching with us live. If you haven't already, we'd certainly appreciate it if you could hit that like button for us and allows more folks to find their way into our live coverage as we approach the point of liftoff now, less than 3 minutes away.
Stage 1 LOX load is complete. Stage 2 LOX load is complete.
With that call out, the SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket is now fully loaded with 1 million pounds of propellant, just now about 1.5 minutes away from the planned liftoff of the Falcon 9. That additional venting you're seeing are the ground gas closeouts.
Ground gas closeouts has started.
And with less than a minute to go, we're going to go ahead and keep our focus
Falcon 9 is in startup.
on the Falcon 9 itself. Promise we'll come back to the live chat on the other side of liftoff. Waiting for the SpaceX launch director to give their go for launch.
Go for launch.
And with that confirmation, we are now less than 30 seconds away from the liftoff of this Falcon 9 rocket on the Starlink 8-9 flight, sending up 20 more Starlink satellites to low Earth orbit. 15 seconds. Engine ignition. And liftoff. call for MVAC chill. They are thermally conditioning that Merlin vacuum engine, preparing for its ignition. Coming up, we have a few events in fairly rapid succession. See first stage main engine cutoff. That's coming up at T plus 2 minutes 25 seconds. That'll be followed by stage separation and then second stage engine start. And there you see MECO. Stage separation. SES-1. You see those events coming in from the SpaceX onboard cameras as well. Those hypersonic grid fins deploying as the fairings are now about to be jettisoned. You can see them falling away from Pete Carson's tracking camera here.
Fairing separation confirmed.
Now a little more than, or just about 4 minutes into flight now. Next milestone we're anticipating is the start of the first stage entry burn. It's coming up now less than 2 minutes at T plus 6 minutes and 6 seconds. That burn will last for about 23 seconds in total. As you saw during the ascent from the pad, it's a little bit cloudy here in the area around Central Florida, so we may or may not be able to see the entry burn from the ground cameras we have, but if we are able to capture that, we will of course bring those live views to you. Now a little more than 5 minutes into flight. Those bursts you're seeing there in the box at the top right-hand corner of your screen, they were seeing it between the hypersonic grid fins, those are the cold gas thrusters. Still getting some great tracking from Chuck Briggs here. Coming up on that first stage entry burn at now just a few seconds away.
Stage 1 FTS is saved.
We're now at T plus 7 minutes, 15 seconds and counting. Next milestone will be the first stage landing burn beginning. Still got a great view of the second stage, though. Peeking in between some cloud cover. That was Chuck's view. Looks like Pete's getting clouded out as well. And it's weaving in and out from our perspective. Chuck is up in Titusville this morning. Coming up on the start of the landing burn.
Stage 2 is in terminal guidance.
Stage 2 FTS is saved.
And for a 16th time, the first stage has landed on the drone ship. See that Merlin vacuum engine about to cut off momentarily.
And back shutdown.